Rabotai, welcome to another edition of our Wednesday night class. We're reading the Parashiyot, Shemot, Va'era, Bo, Beshalach, which are Parashiyot that discuss to us the oppression that the Jewish people suffered by the hands of the Egyptians and then the ultimate redemption. But I think that there are tremendous amount of lessons, and there has to be a tremendous amount of ethics that we could learn, practical ethics, practical lessons that we can and must learn from that story of the bondage, because after all it was a preparation to Matan Torah. And we always were taught Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah, that respect and ethics must precede the Torah. So obviously, when we read the parashiyot that precede the giving of the Torah, there must be many lessons that we may draw from and learn from in order to make ourselves better Jews. One midah that stands out, and it stands out and it recurs over and over and over again, is the midah of hakarat hatov, is the midah of gratitude, of recognizing that good was done to you and reciprocating and appreciating. But it doesn't only repeat itself many times, as we'll see, but it's portrayed in the most extreme, exaggerated, far-fetched, to the limit, to the outer limits of hakarat hatov, to levels that you'd say it's not normal, doesn't make sense, it borders illogical how far this trait is carried. I'll give you the examples and then I make my conclusion, which is obvious. It's got to be that important that they're demanding from us fanaticism when it comes to such a trait like hakarat hatov. And we begin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Give gratitude to God first for this delicious cup of Coca-Cola. I know you appreciate that. Now, don't underestimate this she'akol niyeh b'dvaro that we make in the beginning of these classes. I underestimated it because I'm just doing it because I'm thirsty and we have to make a beracha. I say it out loud so the people can answer amen. I was in Montreal a few weeks ago and I was introduced to a lady. I said, I have to meet you, Rabbi. You changed my life. You turned my life around. I said, I don't do anything. I'm just coming here. I give classes. I read what's in the Chumash. I read what's in the books. She said, no, it wasn't with the classes. I said, I have to hear. I brought you back to religion and not with classes. This is mental empathy. How did I bring you back here? She says, I was listening to your tapes, but it wasn't the Torah that brought me back. No. What's your story? She says, I'm sitting down to the tape. I have a cup of water in front of me. She says, I haven't made a beracha in I don't know how many years. And I turn on the tape, and I'm about to sip the water, and I hear you on the tape. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. I said, wow, he knows. He knows. He's talking to me. What a musar. So I paused the tape. I said, the rabbi's telling me you have to make berachot. What are the odds? I said, of course, I'm glad you got my message. What kind of business is this not making berachot for all those years? But so you never know where people are going to get inspired from. You work for an hour giving musar, and then they come and tell you the best part of the tape was the she'akol, Rabbi. Phenomenal. It was great. Highlight. So you never know where the inspiration is going to come from in a class. So you're getting it live here. You're hearing all the chances for people to get excited. The first example starts like this. At the end of Moshe Rabbeinu's life, God tells Moshe, it's time to take revenge against the Midyanim. The Midyanim had caused great sorrow and death to the Jewish people. We lost 24,000 men in a plague due to the deception of the Midyanim, their ladies, their women. And therefore God tells Moshe Rabbeinu it's revenge time. Nekom nikmat b'nei Yisrael me'et Midyanim. And Moshe, you're going to handle it. It's a mitzvah. What does Moshe Rabbeinu do? Immediately he goes to Pinehas, the Kohen, and says, I have a job for you. You got to go fight Midyan, take a revenge. And all the rabbis ask, Moshe Rabbeinu's passing the buck? Here God comes to Moshe and says, handle it. And now he comes along and says, Pinehas, take care of it. It's so un-Moshe-like. Moshe Rabbeinu was a man that when the Jewish people are leaving Egypt and they're all taking the money, what's Moshe doing? He's involved in the casket of Yosef HaSadiq. Any mitzvah that's available for Moshe to fulfill, he's there. The 6 cities of refuge, Arei Miklat. You need 6 cities for them to work. Until all 6 cities are established, none of them work. What does Moshe Rabbeinu do when he's on the other side of Israel? He designates 3 cities. They tell Moshe, what are you designating the 3 cities for? Anyway, they're not going to work until we designate the 3 in Israel. So you're wasting your time. He says, at least I'll do half a mitzvah. If I can't do the full mitzvah, I'll start it. So you see Moshe's attitude when it comes to mitzvot, he's very, very meticulous in fulfilling any part of a mitzvah. And now the last mitzvah of his life. God commissions Moshe, go fight Midyan. And what does he do? Pass, Shaliach, Pinchas, handle it. And God doesn't have any claims against him. I mean, it's not like God came to Moshe after and said, Moshe, what's the deal over here? I give you a mitzvah and you go and you give it out? You sublease the mitzvah to somebody else? Moshe Rabbeinu says the following. I grew up in Midyan. I was raised in Midyan. I married a girl from Midyan. I had children in Midyan, and my father-in-law was from Midyan. It's not befitting for me to lead the revenge against the hometown where I was brought up. It would be ungrateful. Do we have to take the revenge? Certainly. But it's not proper for me to lead the war against these people that I owe gratitude to. That's extremism. And he understood that that's what God meant. He understood that when God told him, go fight Midyan, not you, my question was, where does he know that from, Moshe? I mean, he made a judgment. This is a judgment call. He's got to weigh it. Do I listen to God or do I give it to Pinehas? Is Hakarat HaTov strong or is the word of God strong? What gives? What was Moshe Rabbeinu's precedence? How does he know that Hakarat HaTov is that important? He knows it from Egypt. When God tells Moshe, tell your brother Aharon to hit the Nile to bring the plague of blood. Aharon hit the Nile? Why not Moshe? So she explains that it's not befitting of Moshe Rabbeinu, who was saved by the Nile when he was a baby. His mother put him in the basket and he flowed in the Nile. Now you're going to go hit the Nile? Not befitting. And therefore frogs also is done by Aharon. Why? Because you're going to have to hit the Nile. And kinim is done by who? The lice? Aharon. Why? Because kinim you had to hit the ground. And it's not befitting for Moshe to hit the ground. After all, the ground saved Moshe's life. When he had to bury the Egyptian and hide the evidence, the ground came to Moshe's rescue, saved him out. So now you can't hit. Now this is hard to understand. What's hard to understand is, first of all, look at the upside of this. You know, in every deal you have to look at the upside and the downside. The upside is endless. The Egyptians worshipped the Nile as a god. Now you're going to come and make the greatest Kiddush Hashem in history. You're going to tell Paro and 100 million other pagans that this Nile that you worship as God is nothing. There's only one God in the world, and the proof of the pudding is we're going to hit it and it's going to turn into blood to let everybody know that there's God in the world. Could there be a greater Kiddush Hashem than this? Could there be a greater sanctification of God's name than telling them, your God, the Nile, it's going to attack you with frogs. It's going to be the source of great anguish for you. Your ground is going to be like it's tremendous acknowledgement of the presence of God. That's the upside. What's the downside? So it's not the most gracious thing. I don't even understand why not. What are you doing to it? Sachakol, bottom line, I'm taking a stick, tick. What, you think the Nile gets offended? Well, you think when you hit the Nile says, oh, how dare you? Don't you know what I did for you? I mean, this is not a human being over here. So hit the Nile. What does the Nile care, and what does the ground care? I'm going to answer this question. But before we get to the logic of it, that's the facts. The facts were God did not want Moshe Rabbeinu to hit the Nile or hit the ground because of Hakarat HaTov. So when God tells Moshe, go fight Midian, he says, I know exactly what God means, by the way. We went through this already. The same God that doesn't want me to hit the Nile, Hakarat HaTov, certainly doesn't want me to go lead the army and take revenge against Midian, where I was raised. He means tell Pinehas. That's where he knows it from. As a matter of fact, Moshe Rabbeinu excelled in this trait. When God actually tells him at the beginning of his career, Moshe, go and redeem the Jewish people from Egypt. He gives him the contract to be the savior of all time. And what does Moshe Rabbeinu answer God? He answers God, I'm interested, but I have to go ask permission from my father-in-law first. I have to go ask Yitro. What does it say? If we could find the pasuk. Vayelech Moshe vayashov el yeter choteno. Vayomer lo elchana v'ashuva el achai asher b'Mitzrayim ve'er'eh ha'odam chayim. Vayomer Yitro le Moshe lech leshalom. He goes and asks him, I'm going to go, I'm going to see what's going on. What are you asking Yitro for? God told you to go. Go. You go to Yitro, I'm leaving, see you later. Yitro as if he's giving him permission. Okay, go. Because Moshe Rabbeinu is telling God, it wouldn't be gracious of me. It would be uncouth. It would be unright. Yitro provided for me. Yitro took care of me. I owe Yitro. It would not be befitting for me just to leave him and go without asking permission. That's Hakarat HaTov. But my most extreme example, and we're going to try to make sense to all this. I'm just showing you the trait in its purest form. Most extreme example is when Moshe gets to the well. Moshe's at the well and the daughters of Midian are in trouble. And Moshe Rabbeinu goes out and saves them. So they tell him, thank you. We appreciate it. So what does Moshe Rabbeinu answer? Don't thank me. Thank the Egyptian. Thank the Ish Mitzri. What Egyptian? So the Mefarshim explain, Moshe was saying, listen, I don't deserve all the credit. After all, the only reason why I'm here at the well in Midian is because I killed an Egyptian. If that Egyptian didn't die, I wouldn't have had to run over here. Therefore, you got to give thanks to the Egyptian. He had a hand in this. This is... And the rabbis give an example to a fellow that was bitten by a poisonous snake, and he had to run to the water to soak his leg in the water to save his life from the poison. And he gets to the water and he sees a kid drowning. So he jumps in and saves the kid. The kid says, thank you, thank you. He says, don't thank me, thank the snake. Thank the snake? What did the snake do? Well, if the snake didn't poison me... And that's extreme, Rabotai. It's to such an extent. You think the Egyptian had kavanah? You think the Egyptian said, let me die so I can do Moshe a favor? I guarantee you, when the Egyptian in Gehinnom saw that through his death it did a favor to Moshe, that was the biggest Gehinnom for the Egyptian. He burnt more because of that. And here Moshe Rabbeinu, it's the exact opposite of our nature. We're always looking for excuses why we don't have to say thank you. We're always looking for a reason why we don't owe him. He was doing it for himself. He didn't have me in mind. He was going anyway. I really didn't need it. I could have done without it. We're always looking for the angle why we don't have to say thank you. Why we don't have to show appreciation or gratitude. Moshe is going the other way. It's like he's making money on each person he can find who he owes something to. Oh, I got one. How about the Egyptian that died? Oh, that's a good one. Ish Mitzri Hitzilah. A phenomenal lesson over here. So I ask, if I see it repeating itself so often in this parasha, I want to know, why is it so important? What's so important about saying thank you, of being gracious, of showing appreciation for things? What's so important about it? Is it just merely etiquette? Like we tell our children when they get something, say thank you. Is it just because it's the proper thing that we want to be gentlemanlike, ladylike? Is this just a subject of being polite? Is that all it is? This is like Emily Post goods? This is just etiquette, doing the right thing? Is that all it is? Certainly not. And you won't imagine how much it is important and what it does lead to. You're familiar with the pasuk. Vayakom melech hadash al Misraim asher lo yada et Yosef. A new king arose on Egypt who didn't know who Yosef was. Two opinions. Either it's the same old creep, and he just made himself as if he don't know Yosef, or it's a new creep that didn't know who Yosef was. Two opinions. It's the old guy or it's the new guy. But no matter how you learn, both of them definitely knew who Yosef was. Even if you tell me it's a new guy, you're going to tell me what? It was a new king elected in Egypt that never heard of Yosef? He never heard about the economy of Egypt toppling. He never heard of the Great Depression. He never heard of the famine. He never heard of the brilliant Yosef that saved the entire country. But he doesn't know Egyptian history. How do you get elected to become the king of Egypt if he doesn't know simple history? I mean, is it possible that a new president can be elected to the United States and you tell him, George Washington, I never heard of him. Who is he? Oh, it's a new president. He doesn't know everything. It's a new you have to know. This is civics. Everyone knows this. So even if you tell me it's a new guy, still he was blinding himself. They both didn't want to appreciate Yosef, no matter how you learn it. I don't want to. They were both lacking in this fundamental trait of having gratitude. Because gratitude would dictate, hey, listen, Yosef saved the whole country from death. And now what? We're going to subjugate his descendants. We're going to subjugate his grandchildren and great-grandchildren to bondage? Is that right? We can't do it. But he lacked that sensitivity. He didn't have that. Later on, when the makot start falling on his head, Paro makes a statement. His statement goes, Vayomer Paro, Lo yada'ti et Hashem. So I don't know who God is. This is a statement of denial, a statement of atheism. He refutes God. I never heard of him. You never heard of him. There's plagues on your head. You see your country falling apart. And what is Paro saying? I don't know. I don't know who he is. Lo yadati et Hashem. So the rabbis, in their keen perception, like doctors, that are trying to figure out where the patient went sick. They're trying to give a prognosis on what led to this breakdown of a man. So you know what they say? You know where it started from? You know where Paro's sacrilegious statements stemmed from? Didn't start there. It started Asher lo yada et Yosef. And it leads to lo yadati et Hashem. Because if you cannot have gratitude to people, it eventually leads to not having gratitude to God and to becoming a kofir. It's amazing insight. It's actually frightening. You're telling me that what? That if I don't know how to say thank you to somebody that did me a favor, I mean, my wife served me dinner. She puts it on the table in front of me, and I don't know how to say thank you, so the Hakamim are saying, wow, you are on the road to atheism. I never looked at it that bad. And my wife never looked at it that bad. I mean, she looked at it as bad, but I mean, ad kedekach, to such an extreme, yeah. It starts off where it's a blatant favor somebody did for you, and you deny it. No, say thank you, come on. Excuses, she had to do it for me. We have a ketubah, it's part of it. What do you mean? She's doing it anyway. I mean, she has to eat also. She's not going to starve. She cooked for herself also. She cooked for me. So she made extra as well. So excuses. See, we're the opposite. We always look for an angle that we don't have to say thank you. So now be careful. If you're that prototype, know where it leads to. Because God has done you a lot of favors, and He continues to do you favors. And if you don't know how to show gratitude to the things that are obvious in front of your face, one day you'll come along and say, well, it's God. Well, God didn't do anything for me. I don't have anything. And the whole reason why we do mitzvot and keep away from averot is because it's the least we can do to God. I mean, after all, what He does for us, so you got to pay back a little. But if you don't understand that you have to pay back, so all mitzvot become worthless, averot become the norm. I mean, so this trait over here is, if you have it, it can lead to a path to get close to God, and if you're deficient in it, it can lead to destruction, spiritual destruction. As a matter of fact, the Nevi'im give us a stunning proof to this. The Nevi'im in the book of Shemuel tells us of the demise of Shemuel HaNavi. When he passed away, it says all the Jewish people gathered and they came and they eulogized him. And then the next pasuk writes that there was a fellow in the city, he was in Ma'on, and he has his business in Carmel, and he's a well-to-do guy, he has sheep and he has livestock, cattle, and the guy's name is Nabal. Nabal HaKarmi. And the rabbis ask, what's the connection between Shemuel's funeral and this guy Nabal having all this wealth? And the Gemara says, Nabal didn't go to the funeral of Shemuel HaNavi. Why? Because he said, I'm busy. I got all this livestock. I'm not closing down the business for one day. I don't got to go to Shemuel's funeral. What's his rationale? Well, we don't know exactly what he's thinking, but we can assume that it's something like, what did Shemuel do for me anyway? Yeah, he's a great leader, but I didn't know him personally. It's not like I've had dealings with him. Great rabbi of Israel, okay, so he was a good speaker, he gave classes, he was a prophet. I mean, it's not like I knew him, I was intimate with him, okay. And anyway, there'll be so many people at his funeral, one person is not going to make a difference. Again, he probably had a whole list of excuses why he's not obligated to go pay last respects to a man that dedicated his whole life to Am Yisrael, who dedicated every ounce of strength in his body to protect Am Yisrael, to pray for Am Yisrael, and he traveled from city to city to teach Am Yisrael. But he says, not for me. So now we have Nabal on the monitor. We're monitoring him now. Because now he's on the road. Already the bacteria is forming in his character. And if he doesn't fix it, it's going to lead to spiritual destruction. Well, the Rabbi continues. The servants of David do Nabal some favors. They then ask for reciprocation. Please, can we have some food? David's in need. And Nabal says, take a walk. You're not getting anything, I'm not interested. You didn't do me any favors. So now it's becoming a little more evident. It starts off, he doesn't go to a funeral. And now already, blatantly, he's not paying back people that did him a favor. So the guy is really an ingrate. And what's the end of Nabal? David HaMelech surmises it in Tehillim when he says, Amar Nabal belibo en Elohim. Nabal says at the end, there is no God. And where does that start? From not going to the funeral of Shemuel. But when the midah is left uncontrolled, it leads to denying Hashem. That's how serious the trait is. There's a phenomenal chidush we said over. It's worth it to repeat it again at this point, to show you hakarat tov, how important it is and what it can lead to. You remember when Yaakov Abinu, he comes back from the fight with Esav, and he gets to a place and he builds sukkot for his sheep. He builds huts for his sheep. The Torah says, and he calls the place Sukkot. Why does he call the place Sukkot? After the huts that he built for the sheep. And all the rabbis are baffled. I mean, such an insignificant event. I'm sure he did a lot of things in that place. But that's what you named the place after? A guy went to a place and he walked his dog. So he called the place Dog Walk. I mean, doesn't matter. That's how you feel. Okay, you walked the dog. That's how you did it. But that's not the whole essence of the place. Why does that become the name? He parked his car. He called the place Parked Car. I mean, you do that. It's not a major event. So he built some huts for his sheep. So the Order HaKadosh says amazing. Order HaKadosh says this was a great innovation. Because Yaakov Abinu was the first one to build protection for his livestock. Till then, nobody did it. Till then, what's the attitude? They're sheep. You want to build protection, you build a house for your children, for yourself. I have to go start building shelter for sheep now. After all, they're only sheep. But Yaakov Abinu had an attitude that, listen, I receive my sustenance from these sheep. These sheep are the source of my parnasah. Therefore, I have to give hakarat tov to the sheep. Therefore, they deserve some protection. Therefore, I build a So that Sukkot was not an incidental. Now that building of the Sukkot was not like a small side point. That was a great lesson. Yaakov Abinu was saying, Hakarat Tov goes so far that you even have to show it to the sheep. Do you think the sheep know? What do you think the sheep, after he builds the huts, kavod, we feel good. Skil mitzvot Yaakov, we appreciate it. You think the sheep know the difference between if they're in a sukkah, if they're not in a sukkah? That goes back to the original question. You think the ground knows? When Moshe doesn't hit it, you think the Nile cares? The explanation is Hakarat Tov is not for the sheep, and it's not for the ground, and it's not for the water. It's for you. It's for the person. Because you want to keep heightened sensitivity to Hakarat Tov at all times. So therefore you don't want to dull the sense. Because you know what it could lead to. If a person has a blunt sense of Hakarat Tov, he's a kafui tov, it can lead to denial of God. So you want to be extreme. Not because the Nile cares, but because you want to create that feeling. I owe it to the Nile. I owe it to the ground. I owe it to the sheep. It's for what it does to you. So you'll come to say, I owe it to God. I owe it to God. It's to keep you alert. It's to keep you on your toes. You're right, the sheep don't care. The Nile don't care. The ground doesn't know the difference. Inanimate. It's what it does for you. But listen to the story. The story continues. So he names the place Sukkot, as if he names the place thank you. The place is called gratitude. You can imagine the lesson that was imparted to his children when they saw that. It's a great lesson in Chinuch over here. I mean, obviously the Shevatim saw their father's hashkafa, their father's attitude on life here. And then you have the story when Yaakov tells Yosef to go see the brothers. You remember that story? That was the story that led Yosef to be with the brothers alone in the field, and then the rest we know. But look at this pasuk over here. It's amazing. Vayomer lo, Yaakov tells Yosef, Lech na re'eh et shelom achecha. Go see the welfare of your brothers. Ve'et shelom hason. And go see the welfare of the flock. Very strange. Yaakov Abinu, go give regards to the boys, and regards to the sheep, to the kelb, to the hamor, regards to the sheep, welfare of the sheep. What kind of business is this? What's Yaakov telling Yosef? Yaakov's giving a lesson to Yosef. Again, we're shepherds. The sheep is the source of our livelihood. We get parnasah from the sheep. You ask for the welfare of the sheep. This is Yaakov's chitush on life. You build them sukkot. You ask about their welfare. Did Yosef understand this message? 1000% he did. The proof? When he's in Egypt and now he's being seduced by the wife of Potiphar. The wife of Potiphar is trying to entrap Yosef to make an avirah. Yosef does not succumb to his desires. And it says, what stopped him? So the Gemara says he saw demut diyukno shel abiv. He saw the image of his father. He saw the image of Yaakov Abinu. And that stopped him. What in the image of Yaakov was the deterrent? I saw an explanation which is amazing. Explanation is, when he saw Yaakov Abinu, he remembered what his father stood for. His essence is gratitude. He remembers the building, the Sukkot. He remembers him telling him, go see the welfare of the sheep, because if you receive sustenance from them, if you made a living from them, you have to show hakarat hatov. So Yosef says, what would my father say? Potifar is my employer. He gives me a living. I work for him. Now I'm going to take his wife? How can I do that? If my father has hakarat hatov to sheep because they provide a living for him, I'm going to now take my employer's wife. That's the worst thing I can do. So the chinuk of hakarat hatov of Yaakov Abinu ultimately saved his son. So you see, there's a definite connection. How hakarat hatov flows over into our religious life. Question is then, why is it so hard? Why do we find people that have difficulty in showing gratitude? Not to everyone is this midah so easily interpreted into action. People struggle with this. People always have claims. The children don't say thank you enough. Spouses have claims against each other. They never show gratitude. Why do we always hear these claims? That there's not enough appreciation in the world over here. What's the problem? It's so important. We know what it leads to. Why is it so hard? The explanation is, in one or two words, is because it's shameful. Saying thank you is an admission of dependency. I needed you for something. And nobody wants to be dependent on somebody else. Because we have an ego, because we have pride, because we don't want to be recipients, because nobody wants to be on the side of taking. We want to be givers. We want to be like God. After all, we have a soul. Chelek Elokam Mima'al. We have a chelek of God in us, and God is the ultimate giver. God never takes anything, and we want to be like God. We have that loftiness in us, that high spirituality of being givers. So to say thank you and show appreciation to somebody is an admission of weakness on our part. That we needed you, and it's embarrassing, and it's a blow to our pride. That's why it's so hard. This trait of dependency is so shameful that there's a wild Yerushalmi. Explain it to you. The Yerushalmi is talking about trees. Listen to a story. It's actually a halakha. I won't confuse you with the halakha, but I'll give you the story of the Yerushalmi. Mind-boggling. The Yerushalmi is talking about a tree that you took the branches that were coming out of this tree and you replanted them back into the ground. So you have a tree that's standing in the ground, that has its roots, and you replanted it, part of that tree, it's still attached to the mother tree. Interesting, Hadush. And what's the purpose of it? You want the new branch to take its own roots, and eventually it'll start to produce its own fruit, and it becomes independent. So the question of the Gemara is, how do you know when the new tree becomes independent from the mother? How do you know it's stopped receiving food from the mother tree and now it's receiving food from its own roots? So the Gemara says, we'll give you the hadush. You don't have to go into the tree, you don't have to go underneath the ground, you don't need a telescope, you don't need x-ray machines, we'll tell you exactly how. So long as the leaves of the new tree are facing away from the mother tree, you know it's taking. But once the leaves turn around and face the mother tree, now you know it's independent. What's the pshat? Because when it's taking, it can't look in the face. It can't look, so it's embarrassed. So the leaves are turned away. Now you know it's receiving. But once it's on its own, it turns to the mother tree, looks it right in the face. What are you? Who are you? I don't owe you nothing. Die. I don't need you anymore. I have my own money. You didn't do anything for me. Can look it in the face. It's not embarrassed anymore. I mean, this trait already is so deep it affects the plant life. Well, the more so, what does it affect human beings? So we have to overcome that weakness. So if you're humble like Moshe, you have no problem. See, a lady works on this humility, so you have no problem showing dependency to others. I needed you for this, and I needed you for that, and you also helped me, and you go out of your way to find people that did you favors. You're not shamed to show that. We have a law that's written in Gemara Berachot. The Gemara is discussing the laws of employees of praying on the job. You have a worker, it's lunchtime, the Gemara says, listen, you don't have to make all the berachot. Forget about all the berachot that you have to make before the bread. Pass on the hamotzi. No hamotzi for the worker. Just eat the bread without a beracha. And when it comes to birkat hamazon, the worker is given a certain leniency to make an abridged birkat hamazon. Why? Because we don't want him to impinge on his employer's time. We're paying you to work, not to make birkat hamazon now. You want to make birkat hamazon? Go to the kollel and make birkat hamazon. Join the kollel. You want to pick apples? You're an apple picker. Make birkat hamazon on your own time. But you got to make birkat hamazon. So make the quick version. Not on my time. Bitun melacha. Very strict laws over here. And how long does birkat hamazon take? How long does hamotzi take? What are you talking about? 3 seconds, 4 seconds? And some of us can make birkat hamazon in a nanosecond. I mean, so now you're worrying about such a small amount of time, and you see the Gemara saying, "But you work, you're a worker. You can't take from the time of the employer, even if it's for God." So we got the rule good now, and then we open up Mishnayot Bikkurim, and we see the opposite. The law says in Bikkurim, when the pilgrims used to come up to Yerushalayim with their baskets of Bikkurim, their first fruits, they have a farmer. He finally got a product out of his field, first fruits. He put them in a basket. He brings them up to Yerushalayim to give them to God. And there was like a parade. It says when they get close to Yerushalayim, all the storekeepers would come out, and all the workers would come out and greet the pilgrims of Bikkurim. What happened to impinging on the employer's time? A second ago you tell me you can't make a motzi. Now you're telling me, go bring your flutes out, go start dancing, tikkatei parade, beruchim habaim, bikurim, hey ho. What happened? For this for the parade you could stop. And the explanation is because bikurim is gratitude. Bikkurim is a parade of people telling God, thank you for the fruit. We want everybody to see this. It's worth it. It overrides other considerations. Yeah, stop the work, take an hour, and stand there and clap for the people that are coming to say thank you to God. It's worth it. It overrides all considerations. That's how serious Hakarat HaTov is. That's how far it goes. The Gemara writes, Barmenan, we talk this in theory, God forbid in actuality, but we must give an explanation to this statement. The statement says, En ishto shel adam meta, ela im ken mevakshim mimenu mamon, ve'en lo. But when a person's wife passes away, Rahman l'Silan, if people ask him for money and he doesn't give them, what are we talking? So the Gemara explains we're referring to a person that owes a debt. He borrowed money. And now when the creditors come along and ask him for the money, he says, sorry, I don't have it. I can't pay you back. So the Gemara says, because of this, a person's wife dies. Now you have to understand what this means. Of course, if a person's wife dies, she's dying because of her own story. But the Gemara is looking, it's a punishment to the husband also. I mean, she's dying because of her situation, obviously. She has her own bill with God. But it's affecting the husband. So the Gemara wants to know, what did the husband do to deserve to lose his wife? I mean, the judgment of God affects everybody. So they're looking at it from the husband's angle. What is his sin in this? So you know what the Gemara says? It happens because when somebody owes money, and they come to collect, and he says, I don't have it. So Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, what's the pshat over here? What's the connection? So Rav Chaim Shmulevitz says, a person that owes money and says, I can't pay, I don't have it, he lacks in hakarat hatov. Guy did you a favor. Guy did you a favor. You have to do anything in your life to pay back. Because if you understood what it means, recognizing the good that people did for you, you'd find a way. Where there's a will, there's a way, he says. If you understood the pressing issue of showing a salutation to somebody that did a favor for you, your answer is, I don't have it. I can't pay you back. That's not the answer. That shows you're ungrateful. Because if you knew what it means, you'd make it happen. You'd find a way. When you need to find the money, you could find it. But to you, big deal. So I burnt him. So I say they didn't pay him back. So what? Big deal. So today I burnt him. Tomorrow I'll burn somebody else. It doesn't matter. So you're a kafui tov. So Rav Chaim Shmulevitz says, one of the biggest people you owe in your life is your spouse. It's your wife. And think about all the things a person's wife does for him. I mean, she cooks, and she cleans, and she does, and she... If this guy doesn't pay back people that he lent money, that he borrowed money from, rest assured he's not paying his wife back either for all the good things that she does. That trait of being ungrateful that manifests itself to not paying loans certainly is affecting his bayit. A man that doesn't pay his debts is a man that cannot be good to his wife because he doesn't understand, doesn't recognize goodness. And therefore God says, you don't deserve it. You're not paying the debts, don't deserve it. We take it away from you. Of course, this works both ways. But you see over here, that trait, unfortunately, we see so many people in business. They order goods, they don't pay. I'm not talking from the stealing aspect. That's another class. From the gezerah. From the decency aspect of it. These people don't understand that a favor was done to them. This is rotten to the core of the human essence. And these people, unfortunately, are on a road that will lead them to spiritual destruction. It's not possible. And we sit at a table, and our parents provide for us food, or our wives provide for us food, or our husbands provide for us money and shelter, and we sit at the table and we don't say thank you. and we're making beracha, and we're glat kosher, bet Yosef. Hold everything. You are coming along with lip service to God, who you can't see, who it's all emunah. Here you see it in front of you. Somebody did you a favor, and you can't say thank you. Who are you fooling? It's hard to call ourselves even religious people if we cannot master this trait. We have to be extremists when it comes to Hakarat HaTov. I said once, when it comes to berachot, we have a rule. Safek berachot nahakel. When it comes to berachot, if you don't know, did I make the beracha? Did I make the beracha? Should I make the beracha? Better don't make the beracha. We don't want you to say God's name in vain. Thank you is not God's name. If you're in doubt whether you're supposed to show gratitude or not, say thank you. Safek, thank you, lechumrah. You say it. Give it. Don't worry about it. It's not a beracha lebatala. It can't hurt you. Baruch Hashem, we have a good custom in our community. We like to give gifts. We're always giving gifts. And in any occasion we can, we're sending gifts, we're doing gifts. God bless our community. It's amazing. Last week I was sick for a few days. I can't tell you how much souvenirs I got in that 1 week. Plants and flowers and cards and earmuffs and all sorts of toys. It's a phenomenal community. It's amazing. We're a gift-giving community. But what I noticed is, especially people get married or they have a baby where they're getting a lot amount of gifts, the attitude of the receivers a lot of times is the thank yous. The thank yous, you have to write thank yous. It becomes the greatest burden. And to the extent where it becomes quite difficult for us to even personalize thank yous anymore. Because, we were able to receive the gift from everybody personally. To receive the gift, we're able to come and have you, thank you, I'll look at it, enjoy it. When it comes to the thank you, we don't have time for that anymore. It's beneath us already to drop a line and say thank you. So we go to the calligrapher, whatever it is, the stationery place, and we make up some corny poem, make an excuse why we couldn't write it, and we make some line, we send it out, it's thank you, Skelem and Zvor. I'm probably guilty of the same thing. I forgot what I did and what I'm doing. I don't know what's exactly going on in the house here. I'm probably indicting myself. Somebody's going to come, I got one of your things, Rabbi, it wasn't personalized. Well, you're lucky because you probably couldn't read my handwriting anyway, but that's not the point. When it comes to Hakarat HaTov, it has to be personalized. In the Amidah, in the Hazarah, girls, I hope you can appreciate it. In the Hazarah, when the Hazan's repeating the Amidah, it's not the most exciting ritual in the religion. The Hazan's doing all the work. He's belting out the prayer. And what is everybody else in the Kahal doing? Amen. God, we need wisdom and we need this. He makes a whole long speech and we come along, we're with you. You're 100%. Amen. We agree. And we go back along, walking around, minding our own business. We want God, you give us wealth, and we need money, and give us the money. Everybody else there, we're cheering in the back. 100%, amen, we go for it. So we're just throwing in our vote of confidence to the Hazan, and the Hazan's killing himself up there. But there's one part of the Amidah where amen doesn't do it. Hazan gets up and says, Modim anachnu lach. Thank you, God, for everything. Then what does the halakha say? That everybody's got to get up with the Hazan and say, Modim anachnu lach. Because when it comes to saying thank you, a vote of confidence is not enough. You can't send a messenger to say thank you to you. Hazan, handle it. Hazan, thank you, God. And we agree with you. Good, handle it. You send it. Amen. No. You can't say thank you through a messenger. When it comes to Modim, everybody's got up and say thank you, Hashem, yourself. It's a great lesson. There has to be methods that you have to figure out. How to show people appreciation. There's no statute of limitations. Once you said thank you once, doesn't matter. I said, well, even I paid him back. According to the statements in the Gemara, it sounds like you're indebted for life. Somebody does you a favor, you owe him for life. See, we're filled with excuses. I paid him back already. I mean, he had to do it to me after all I did for him. We're always looking for the angle why we're not obligated to say thank you. And here we're seeing how far it goes and how serious it is. And there's no such thing where you say, I said thank you already once. The real way to do it is you're probably supposed to go to the person the first time and show appreciation, but I think it's the second time that makes it personal. I know myself. Person comes to me, Rabbi, I appreciate it, thank you, whatever the favor is. So that you look at is okay. That's you have to do that. That's the obligation. But when they come back a second time at a different time and say, "Why do I wanted it?" Then already you know they're thinking about it. Then you walk away and say, "He's appreciative." Learn how to say thank you twice, but not in a row. Not Steinbeck Targum. Thank you. The next day, that's how you show appreciation. I was always wondering. This bothered me also on this topic. What's the pshat when we go to a store? You go to a store, we're going to buy eggs. You go to the store, you have to find the egg department yourself. Nobody helps you. Till you get the eggs, you have to stand online. The clerk is behind the counter. He's grumbling at you. He looks at you with a dirty face. You have to pay for the eggs. And what do you do after you pay for the eggs and the clerk gives you the eggs? Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. What did you thank you? Thank you for what? What did you do for me? You did nothing for me. I got the eggs. I paid for it. You didn't do me any hassle. But everybody has a very easy time telling the clerk in the store, thank you. But when it comes to your wife or your husband giving you allowance, no thank you over there. Oh, but the guy in the store who you paid for it, he's giving you money. No, that's what I'm doing. He has to give me money. What do you mean? I have to thank him for something that he signed to himself and the ketubah obligated to do? Why is it easier to tell the clerk thank you than our spouses or our parents thank you? It's more than that you don't mean it. It's because it doesn't mean anything. It's more than that because it doesn't mean anything. That thank you is a sketch in its essence. There's no reason why you have to tell the guy thank you. So that's just like you're being overly nice where you know it's a joke. Instead of telling the guy jump in the lake, so it's nicer to tell the guy to be cordial. Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good day. You don't mean it. You don't care. He knows you don't mean thank you and you don't mean that. So this is an easy one because you don't feel obligated to this guy. So of course, if you don't feel obligated, you can tell thank you all day long. But when it counts, that's when it's hard. When somebody does you a real favor, that's when the shame sets in. Now I owe him thank you. Now it's much more difficult. Now we have to overcome that. Our spouses are not worse than the clerk in the store. Our parents are not worse than the clerk in the store. Our rabbis are not worse than the clerk in the store. I mean, think about what we owe our rabbis. I mean, they're providing with us eternity. They're providing with us olam haba. The Gemara says the The obligation of Hakarat HaTov to a rabbi is even greater than to parents. Because parents bring you into this world, but the rabbi brings you to the eternal world. And you know how extreme we are when it comes to respecting parents. You heard our talk on Kibud Ab Va'em, how far that goes in with our obligation. So you can imagine if there can be a level after that. That's where the Kibud and that's where the gratitude of Hachamim begin. And maybe this is why Jews are called Yehudim. Yehudi's root word is Todah. Jews by nature. That's what we're called. That's what Leah called the fourth son Yehudah, which is gratitude. Because it's so important for us to imbue ourselves with this midah. And Be'ezrat Hashem, if we can implement some of these ideas and stop making excuses and swallow our pride a little, become a little more gracious, but mean it, and express it personally, and express it over and over again, and keep this trait at the forefront of our midot, it undoubtedly will lead to Hakarat HaTov, to God. This class actually is not a class on Hakarat HaTov. It's a class on getting close to God. It's a class in excelling in performance in mitzvot. It's a class in keeping away from sin. But we're telling you how to begin that process. You can't start it over here. You have to start it way back. It starts by saying thank you to your wife and saying thank you to your husband and calling your parents from time to time and telling them thank you and showing thanks and gratitude to people that have done you favors in your life. Chaim Shmulevitz used to go to every wedding of every student that used to attend his classes. He said, they're doing me a favor. They're my audience. They're coming to listen to me. I have to show gratitude. But it's time. Hakarat HaTov. Go read stories about the Gedolim. How much they were extreme when it came to this trait over here. How much they extended themselves in order to show gratitude to the most simple of people, for the smallest of favors that were done to them. And Be'ezrat Hashem, if we can follow this advice, and I'm talking to myself also, Be'ezrat Hashem, it will lead to great spiritual perfection.